something? You gonna share your .NET Core project?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah, let me get it set up. I've just discovered Postman which is a really awesome app.
How did you work before Postman?
I didn't do any server-side anything.
Yeah.
How did any of us?
Or you can view JSON objects in your Chrome browser, which is easy to do in a pinch. But like the ability to actually like get a record of, oh, like what's this route? Oh, I hit that route, last week, but I need to know the exact query. Like to be able to get that whole history is super useful. Unfortunately, I don't think I've saved it, so I actually have to start composing the route.
This is for future reference, Seth. When someone asked you, how did you do stuff before Postman has API, the correct response is curl. Just say, you use curl. And then if they start really questioning you, just say, look over there.
So then go, curl!
Wow.
So what's up?
Oh yeah, okay. So I guess I'll share.
Yeah.
Let me go on Hangout and settings control.
Yeah. So George.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe I thought I invited you to. Let me see. So I closed the Virtual Brown Bag channel on the YouTube thing. I know it's a little inside baseball, but we're gonna still do it.
Okay.
But it looked like it because it was under my account. But actually, what I think it is that it's under the Google Group account thing, and you're supposed to be manager, but it says you're invited, manager, which basically means to me that you were invited, but you apparently did not accept my invite because you don't like me. So I'm going to try it again. Yeah.
Burn.
So now they accept it, because then I want you to know if you go to YouTube, do you see that group? In fact, I deleted it, so I'll have to verify that's even there.
Well, I shall wait by my email for something.
Okay. Yeah, so in this project, well, I guess I'll give a little tour. I'm still, okay, qualify this, I don't know C#. I'm learning C#. I'm going through a bunch of tutorials and getting familiar with a ton of language features. So pretty much a lot of these problems have been me and Steven pair programming, me being like, what's this weird thing? And him being like, okay, let me go off on a super long tangent. And then I'm like, okay, awesome. Now let's go back to just figuring out this one little thing that we've been trying to figure out for 2 hours. So the beauty of pair programming is if one person doesn't know the language very well, that person can be useful in other ways, as in keeping the other person focused, which would be kind of a cool job for an intern to do. So anyways, .NET works pretty well. I have a shell script. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Cat setup at SH. So it's pretty straightforward. .NET Restore is the. I mean, if you've never used .NET, it's like the npm install. In it, we're using SQLite, which was recommended for us as one of the SQL databases that actually had a lot of support. In it, we were gonna do. Steven was. I mean, it was really exciting because I'd never worked on .NET before. I was a filthy casual when I was on Windows, and now that I'm sort of familiar with the Unix environment, I'm like, oh, there's this cool language that someone said. I think Jared said, oh, it's a better Java. That's something that appeals to me. Like,
you're talking about Clojure?
No. I'm talking about C#.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, it's a better. And I didn't realize. I mean, and now I'm reading about it. I'm like, oh, so this was actually meant even from the very beginning to kind of be not sort of a replacement for Java. Like it had the same ideals in terms of being a kind of write once, run ever anywhere language. But I know that both of you guys know a lot more about C# than I do. So I guess I can just go through the code as I understand it. Right now, what's going down is so you can we can send a GET request, send, and we'll get all the timers, right? And then if we, and this was a sort of a weird bug.
Wait,
we're not
we still see just your PowerShell.
Oh really? Oh, let me. You just see my. Let's see what you see. Oh yeah, it's like linked to the. How do I change the screen? Okay, I'll go to change which screen is being shared. Come on. I don't know. Like so, it was in full screen and I thought it was linked to the window, but apparently it's linked to just that screen, which is. Sorry about that, guys. I will click in Furious. Yeah. And then I'll screen share again and then choose a screen. Okay, choose this one. Okay, cool. Okay, great. So so you send get all timers right now. The way that routing is working, which was kind of it was like we for quite a while tried to use query parameters, right? So ID equals, and that's not how it works at all. It actually, and so there's the way that routing is that there's a cascade that goes down. So the first it locks into the first match. So the first one of these. So actually the order in routing does matter, and here's just the ID, and you have to do this weird syntax, which was kind of confusing for me, which was ID colon GUID.
Right now, is that what we're supposed to be seeing?
Oh, I don't know why it keeps locking into this one.
So so when you go share, like, be careful. Check the actual captions of what it says, because it'll say like share app or share screen. Make sure you pick to share the screen.
Oh, yes. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So
okay, cool. And so.
So what are we looking at now?
You're looking at me changing things around.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, so ID GUID, and this is kind of this is a syntax that I wasn't familiar with. Maybe it's like traditional ASP.NET syntax, but
which part of it?
This right here, HTTP GET ID colon GUID.
Okay.
Right, where you're actually in it declaring the type that you're going to be matching, and it's really strange. But in VB browser, the normal SQLite browser, I think it doesn't actually work well with. Actually, I don't have it installed, but it doesn't work well with GUID. So it'll show like a bunch of Unicode characters, not Unicode, but like as if it wasn't parsing characters. Like sometimes when you're using a bunch of Unicode encoded text in a non-Unicode system, you'll get these weird artifacts, and that's the kind of thing you get here with GUID. So not every database browser seems to support this GUID tag, but here's all the magic. So send, and then if I want to go to ID, write this here, I think, and it should actually /API/ okay, maybe I actually have it written down in a comment somewhere. Oh yeah, here's an example. Well, in any case, it was working previously. It's really cool to be able to actually basically start creating behaviors in preparation for actually getting to hooking. So basically mimicking your front end and your back end logic and locking them together. It's super easy because of the way that, at least having a Redux store, so you hydrate it with a JSON object, and it makes it very simple because you already have that data structure in mind, and so you're basically just you just take an example of the kind of object that you need in order for the front end logic to function, and you kind of reverse engineer it into all of these controller methods. Yeah, that's about it.
So let's talk about your C#. Do you mind if I?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of this was written jointly between me and
Okay.
Steve.
And both
Some
you
of
guys?
us, so I wish he was here to actually provide commentary, but
Yeah, where is he? He logged in and then just disappeared?
yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so well, let's go to the top, to the way you were talking about you don't really understand the syntax. Let's talk about what that is. So, just first things first. That line 9 and line 13. You don't actually need. Well, you don't really need it. Don't delete them, but you don't exactly need them. As far as MVC, .NET MVC, whatever, I don't know if we're dropping the ASP.NET moniker or not, is concerned, this is really just a class with some methods. There is another part of the application called the router, which basically you're saying when a request that comes in that looks like this, then create an instance of this class.
Okay. So
run this particular method.
Right. So I shouldn't be using that terminology. Yeah, and there was a moment when I forget where exactly it is in this application.
Configure routes or something like that.
But because you don't necessarily want to use the controller names as your route.
So right. So actually, what's happening here? So people will do that. The issue with that is it can be kind of a pain in the ass, just from a practical perspective. Because when you're actually setting up the routes, you're thinking about this code in particular. So the fact that it was like separated in a completely different file in a completely different area is just, again, for practical reasons, kind of a pain in the ass. So they came up with this other way of doing it where you could put what are called attributes on the classes.
Yeah, right. This is like an attribute syntax.
It's called an attribute, and what that actually is, if you, I don't know if you can go to definition on that, but that is actually a class. There is a class. Yeah, see, we'll pull it up. Like search, just pull up Google and well, whatever. Screw it. It doesn't matter. There is a class. It's in the Web API, or I guess MVC library in this case, called HTTP GET attribute. That's the name of the class. There's another one called route attribute. They all inherit from attribute, and basically what that means is that they're available. If something inherits from attribute and has the suffix attribute in the name, then it can be used like this. What this basically means is it creates an instance of that class. Russell, Steve. It creates an instance of that class, and then just basically stores that alongside with the method definition itself. Does that make sense? So basically, there is a class called HTTP GET attribute. It has it doesn't really do anything, but it has like a string property on it that's like a route name or something like that. So what C# will do, and this part is C# for you, is it actually will, when you use it like this, when your code runs, it'll create a new instance of HTTP GET attribute with that constructor, and then it stores that in what are called custom attributes for that method, which you can then access using reflection. So
what do you mean using reflection?
So reflection is it's an API that C# makes available all languages actually make it available. Think of it like with JavaScript, reflection is so natural. You almost there actually is still a concept of reflection in JavaScript, but it's so natural you almost don't think about it as a separate thing. But doing something like saying, "Get me all the keys on this object," or "Get me all the methods on this object," right? Well, that means take this object, get all its keys for each one of them, look at its value, and find which one of them is a function, right? So that's sort of reflecting about the code itself rather than the data, right?
Yeah, why don't you talk through some of the code? Like,
What?
just talk through some of the code. Like, have him type it. He'll have intelligence to be able to see it, right?
Yeah, I think we can do that. So that's what reflection is at a high level. Yeah, let's just create a new method in here called test, right? We'll just create a private test, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, it's just anywhere. Anywhere is good. The private keyword is technically optional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just void test. And no parameters. We're not actually going to run it, unless you have link pad. We're not going to run it. So just open close parens, open your brace, and then you're missing. Yeah, your brace on line 98 needs to get outdented. Yeah, I think you accidentally no, on line 98. Yeah, I think you accidentally deleted some shit. Okay, cool. So now let's do this. So here we have the timer controller. Let's get not an instance of the timer controller, because if we want an instance, we do new timer controller class constructor. But let's get a description of the type itself. So let's do something like var t equals type of timer controller. Var t equals type of, and that's like invoke that like a method. So type of controllers type of is like invoke it like a function. So parens and everything.
No.
Yeah, so, parens around timer controller. Yeah, it's a little more consistent in.
You have to put parentheses around timer.
So treat type of as if type of was a method.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. Okay. So what t is going to be then? Actually, if you hover over t, hover your mouse over t or over the var. Yeah, see, it's a type called type. And actually, go ahead and change var to capital T type, just to make it explicit from this conversation. So instead of var, no, not t. No, so the name of the variable is still t, but instead of the var, it's just write type. Because var is just.
Oh, so you can. So we're creating a new type.
Nope, it's capital T, capital T type. So that is an actual class. There is an actual class in the .NET framework called type. It's an actual class. It has methods, stuff like that, just like everything else. It's just called.
Are you adding a new method to it? No, you're not. You're just.
No. All we're doing is say what is the type class that is associated with the symbol timer controller.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we could say var there as well. Just we're putting type there for now, just to be very explicit. So when you look over it later. So now you could do something like, let's go to a new line, and we can go ahead and look at this type and get and use it to get specific methods about this class. So do like t dot. So go ahead and hit t dot and see what we have there. So you have like get methods.
Get method. Oh. Okay, and so I have access to all the methods that.
Right. So let's do get. Yeah. Let's do get method. Capital.
Oh yeah. Keep.
Just type M and see if it comes up.
No.
Does it not come up?
I don't know. It's
Visual Studio Code too, so
Yeah, it might be. It might. So there is something called get method. Okay, so just type get method, and then pass in a string. I don't know what was the method called. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Of any method, delete, for example, right? So the strings are double quoted, and you want to get the method, the casing. So you're passing in the name of the method. So capital D delete. Okay, so something like that, and it would return. So let's go ahead and take the result of it and store it in a variable called m and of type method info.
Okay.
So at the
so
beginning, method info capital M, not var. I mean,
when
method
do you use?
info.
I guess I haven't figured this out, but when do you start using var?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Okay, method info M
Method info.
space M. So okay, yeah. Let's talk about what a var is. M for method,
Oh,
not M.
M and method info M.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we have a type.
And if you hover over method info, I believe it'll tell you that you need to add a user. So go ahead and do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and there's a way to do it automatically.
Yep.
So system.reflection.
Yep. So yeah, let's take a step back and talk about what var. So every single type, every single variable in C# has a type, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just the same way as it is in JavaScript. In C#, and actually in old school C# 1.1, whenever you created that variable, you had to explicitly say the type, like you have in line 97, 98. So you're saying, I'm creating a variable named M of the type method info, and put inside of it t.getMethod delete, whatever that returns, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that happened was, after a while, people were like, "That's dumb," because you already know what get method. It's not like get method can return anything. This is a statically typed language. It returns something of type method info. So why do we have to type method info if it already has that information? So var is just a thing saying that basically, yeah, you know the right type that I mean. Just assume that I put the right type in here.
Right.
Until you're comfortable with it, with the typing system in C#, feel free not to use var. And
Gotcha. So over here with
Yep.
entity, what you're actually you're basically saying is, I already know, and it even will show me what kind of entity
Right,
it is,
exactly.
and I don't feel like typing it every single time or looking it up.
But if you want to put timer space entity, go
It
for
would
it.
do exactly the
Yeah,
same.
more power to you. I do think there are some subtle reasons to use var, but not any that you care about. That stuff.
Okay, that clears things up a bit. Okay,
Okay.
so if I'm understanding, what we did was we created a new method called test.
Yeah.
In it, we
Use
basically
the
grabbed the type. We basically grabbed the type from it, and then assigned the type to a variable named t, and then we took that variable type, and then we found the get method, and we
So
looked to
get
see
method.
the get method, and then are now
Yeah.
grabbing the get method. I guess I wonder, like, why are you, I don't know, so all types basically have a at least certain types that, like, every type that you're creating basically has a bunch of methods that you have access to. I mean, that's what's going on. But delete is not a method that's specific to type, to T.
No, well, actually, so it's a little bit confusing. The other thing you did was you deleted one of your braces. You're missing a brace on line 90. Go ahead and add that in, because I'll scroll into also. On line 99. Just right below where you are.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to use Vim on it, and it's like, well, the thing is, this is normal.
Oh, you're
but
doing stuff. Hold on. Yeah, there.
what's going on is, like, Vim is basically, they maintain their own changelog, which is
Yeah.
really annoying.
Yeah. Okay. So do the control comma thing on method info again, or do the thing where I think you deleted the namespace.
Oh yeah.
And you also
I think it's in. I actually rebound it, but it's this little light bulb thing.
it's on method info. Yeah. It's control period probably.
Yeah, it is. I have control period bound to my tab, so I had to rebind it. Anyways.
Okay. So here's where your confusion is coming from, because we're talking about reflection here. The keyword, like when I say type, so like the get method is not like a special thing. It is actually just a method that exists on this class type called get method. Only that variable has a method called get method. Only that class, right? So in the same way that time controller has a delete or update method, like you have in line 86 and 75, get method is just a method on type, on the type class. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a little confusing, but we're talking about reflection.
Gotcha. It's weird to me to think of. I mean, but it's starting to come together just in terms of thinking about types as you would think about sort of any function object, right?
So
as having a set of it would be. I mean.
So on line 97, what you're actually grabbing, it is an instance of class type. What the way to think about it is a type descriptor. It describes. It gives you information about that type.
Oh, gotcha. Well, in JavaScript, I think we call type descriptors they're like like the list of properties, like enumerable, writable, that kind of thing.
So on line 98, what you're doing is you're grabbing a descriptor about the method delete that is on the time controller.
Gotcha. And I wish, I mean, and if we echoed out method info, we would just get.
Yeah.
Well, and then we could and then I'm sure method info as a type, right? So it probably has some other methods on it, right?
Method info does. Right? So what you can actually do is now, if you first of all change it from N to M, because that's going to drive me nuts. But lowercase. Yeah. But now, yeah. So let's go down on the next line. What you can do there is do M dot get custom attribute. Okay. And inside of there, so this one's generic, so it's actually angle braces. And then you would put in there, I guess in this case it would be HTTP delete attribute. Capital H, capital D, capital A. HTTP delete attribute. Okay, right. And then just open close parens. So you're invoking that method.
Oh, yeah.
And what that will actually do, so that is going to return an instance of HTTP delete attribute. And you could call it A. Right.
Right. Okay.
So,
So this isn't a type though. This is another.
Nope. The type is HTTP delete attribute.
Oh. Okay. Yes, we've already declared. Okay. So you could say
delete attribute space A.
Delete attribute
A equals 1. So now, what that's going to be? Remember how I said when you use that syntax on line 74, it actually creates an instance of HTTP delete attribute with that exact constructor. That's it. Like on line 74, that looks like a function call, but that's actually a constructor call. So it's like in terms of new HTTP delete attribute. It actually creates an instance of it and stores it along with a method, and this is how you get it.
Gotcha.
So now on the following line, you could do something like hit enter, right, and do something like A dot, and then right. So it has like template, right? So it has a template property. That template property is going to be equal to the string ID : GUID.
Ah,
Right.
gotcha.
So what actually happens is if you go into your app startup,
Uh,
if you go to your program CS, I think it's probably program CS. Startup CS. No, startup CS is good. All right. So somewhere in here, you're configuring the routes, and you do something like just search for the word route. Yeah. Okay. Let's scroll down a bit. Oh,
yeah, I'm at the
wow.
bottom.
Do you not have to call use attribute routes anymore? That might not be a thing that you have to do anymore. That's cool. So basically, what's going to happen is when you do that, I assume that this is when it happens. It might be slightly different. But when you do that, what it's actually telling it is, hey, go ahead, look through all the types that are currently running in the application. So all the types that are currently loaded.
Uh-huh.
Then look through all of their methods. Find any of those methods that where calling get custom attribute, HTTP get attribute, HTTP delete attribute, whatever, where that does not return null,
Mhm.
and then wire up, then create a map route with that template.
Gotcha.
That's what useMVC. That's I assume what useMVC does.
Okay, so
Like I said, it might be in a slightly different location, but that should be probably.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's pretty much right on. I mean, with the basic concept.
Yeah, so that's what's happening there. So you're getting into the world of reflection, which is, it's mind twisting, but you're well primed for it because.
yeah, I mean, there's certain things that you take for granted in JavaScript, but I assume that they work very similar to how you describe under the.
Yeah. The big difference with something like JavaScript is that in C#, Java, and so on, like the types themselves, the classes are always there because that's the core of the application. So you could do something like say, get all the classes and look through all the classes for something that looks like this. Like you can't do that in JavaScript because there's no such thing as a class or anything that's a global structure beyond the window.
Right. Okay, so you're saying that basically this is getting this is a new instance of a class that's getting instantiated when this controller runs.
It's getting
And it's in that class. In that class, all it does is watch for this kind of template, and then
it's the other way around. So go back to here. So go back to the start.
I haven't.
Yeah. So like what you could do here now is say routes dot map route name is timer route and set up the template to equal controller equals timer controller action equals get. Then you set up name timer delete route controller equals timer controller action equals. You could do all that stuff manually right here, and this is where it was initially. But that's what I was saying. Like it just kind of got a pain.
Oh, gotcha. So it basically lets you go back. So previously they were on different things, and now it's. But the fact that it's got this extra syntax also means it's got an extra
right, exactly.
level of complexity.
So what that useMVC thing is doing. So a couple tweaks to what you said. Those attribute classes are not instantiated when this runs. They're instantiated when the app starts up.
When the what?
When the application starts up, it's going to look at all the classes in the assembly that's starting up, all the classes, and it's going to load the definition of the class. Like, what does it mean to be a timer controller? At that time, it'll create those attributes. Then, when this code runs, it's just going through all the types that are loaded into memory and through all their methods and looking for ones that have certain attributes and then just generating these map routes from that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the basic difference is whether you're declaring it, say, in here in this app.useMVC or on the controllers themselves.
Yes.
Essentially, it all ends up being the same when it runs.
Yeah, so I mean, like, really, this isn't like the only. This is jives pretty well with your JavaScript knowledge, with the wrinkle that the classes are always available and they're instantiated. The classes themselves are created in memory when the application starts, and from then on, you could examine them as at will, basically, from anywhere, because they're immutable anyway. It doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
Like, you can't change a class at runtime.
Right.
Now let's go back, because I do want to make some points on the timer controller. So you don't need that test method anymore, delete it or comment it out or whatever. But there's a couple things here that are going to bother me.
Okay, yeah, let me know.
Okay. So first of all, timer DTO.
Uh-huh.
All right. I can see it. You are taking it as input when you create something.
Mm-hmm.
You are, and then also you are giving it as output because you can call toDTO, right?
Yeah.
That is a huge pain in the ass. Don't do that. Don't reuse DTOs for multiple at all. If you're gonna end up regretting it every goddamn time. So pull up the definition of timer DTO. I'll go through and explain why this is going to happen. Okay, cool. So timer DTO got an ID, title, time. Cool, take this one. Let me and I assume when you call, is there an update method as well in timer controller?
We have a post method.
There's a
HTTP post, this one, and then create.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. So your timer DTO, it has an ID, right, on it? It has. Okay. So let's go to timer DTO. So it has an ID because when you are returning stuff to the UI, right, it needs to know what the ID that timer object is, right? The UI needs to know what an ID is. What is the ID of that timer?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now your create method takes timer DTO as input. What if someone opens up Postman and posts to the create command and fills out the GUID ID?
Already? Well, then it injects that into our database.
Then it's creating a new timer with that. What if that ID already has a timer associated?
Oh, then there's a GUID clash. Yeah.
Then there's a GUID clash.
And our server restarts.
Yeah. Well, but look, but logically it makes no sense. Like logically, whenever you're creating something, you shouldn't have to supply the ID, right? Well, maybe you do. Maybe that's the way.
No, this was something that we were talking about. He spent a long time trying to explain to me this whole thing about what a DTO was, and I put this definition on top of it. And I said, okay, so it's a kind of a generic way of exchanging data. It's like a kind of a middle. It's like between a C#. It's like a middle layer between C# objects and.
Here's a part of that that's a problem with that definition. This is our view model for our entities. Why do your entities need view models? They're not viewing anything.
Yeah, I know. It's not a good definition.
Yeah.
It's just, I was trying to relate it to a concept that I already knew.
View models are for views. The entire point of a view model is like, look, maybe I have this view that's driven by like 5 or 6 objects actually. Right? And we're just going to stuff them all into one object, so in our view, the logic, we don't have to like orchestrating a bunch of different objects to generate the view. That's the point of a view model. So, and you know, in the case of Redux, it might be like a particular bit of state that you're passing down.
No, right? Yeah.
I mean, a view model is just a massaged object to give you exactly what the view wants. So something pretty simple.
Yeah, I just kind of erred on using data transfer objects just to have a clear piece of language.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
But
it was mostly for just Making
Nothing,
sure we
no
had a
part of
consistent
what I
domain
just
language.
said, no part of what I just said applies to the create method. That's not doing anything with a view. That's just taking an input.
Hey, I'm just
And basically, you were saying, well, we needed that input to be of some sort of type. It happens to be the same at the moment, or very close to our output, because what we're sending in is very, very close to what we're sending out. So why don't we just reuse the class, which is really just being lazy about typing, because they're not the same thing at all. Like really, you should create a timer input object, right? Where what's really coming in is a request to create a timer with these attributes or with these properties, right? That's what's coming into create.
So you're saying basically that this data flow is kind of, I don't exactly get it, and I want to just qualify that Steven wasn't the person who said view model. Steven kept saying it's not a view model, and I was like, well, it's kind of ish, so I just want to leave it there so I don't freak out every time I look at it.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. That's not an important bit.
But what you're saying is that right now you've got kind of a two-way data binding thing where you're using basically the same object to create the timers as to output them, the timer object. And you're saying that you want actually a separate object, like a separate.
You don't actually want two-way data binding. It's very seductive and very appealing, but that's not what you want.
Gotcha.
What you want is to not have to type a lot. So what you can, and that is actually a really, really, really good reason to use inheritance. So here's the way out of this. So flip over to your timer DTO thing. So why don't you? So let's do this. Let's do the following. Just in here, we're not going to affect any other files, but just in here, can you change it from timer DTO to base timer DTO?
Okay. And so, are you saying that I should add a new class, or actually
just add a prefix to the name of it.
Oh, okay.
We're actually going to create a timer DTO later. No, to the class, not the namespace. So change it to base timer DTO. Okay. And before the word class, add the word abstract.
Yeah, and that means you're not going to instantiate it directly.
Exactly. That means you can't instantiate it for one reason.
And then you can have read and write DTOs.
Yes, exactly. So now go ahead, just create a new line above this, and create a public class timer DTO. Not abstract.
Oh no, because it's in.
Yeah, timer DTO, or I would call it like read or output or read timer.
I think. Yeah, I like output.
Sure, and have it inherit from base timer DTO.
Gotcha.
Now it's going to have all the same methods, but it's going to be different as far as anything else is
I
concerned.
have a question. Does it matter? Can I have the thing under? Does the order matter?
No, the order doesn't matter. All the classes are created. Again, at the level you're working with, no.
Okay.
Now create one called input timer DTO. Same thing, just right after it. Create a new class. Okay. Now we said the ID really only matters for the input for the output, and we don't really want it for the input. So take the line 14 and move it into the output timer DTO.
Gotcha. Oh yeah.
Yeah, delete it from there. We don't need that. Or put it only in there. Cool. All right. So now we have that. If there were some other properties that only mattered for the input, we would go ahead and add them on line 12, right? In this case, I don't know if you have anything like that.
Right. Let me think. Like properties that are actually only for creation.
Yeah.
Or that you can derive from.
Yeah, and I would actually, rather than input timer DTO, maybe like something like create timer DTO. It's a request to create a timer. So like that, and that will, because when you want to, when you have to do update timer or something like that, you want to use a get different one for that.
Gotcha.
And at that point, you can even drop the D216.
Oh, and so you can, so this, you're finished basically right now.
Yeah. Now we go into timer controller and we just update it to use these instead of timer.
Gotcha. So instead of private timer.
Yeah, ToEntity is going to take a, I guess, input timer, or it's going to take create timer.
Oh no, it's this create.
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah. And we've got it from body, so create.
So I think it's called request to create.
Show me request.
There you go. So something like that, and your ToEntity is going to be changed, right? Your two.
But it says from body request to create to, and I'm creating a DTO. I don't know why it's giving me an error here.
Because the method signature.
Because ToEntity takes a different type. So look at so go down to ToEntity.
Oh.
Yeah, check out your ToEntity method. Go to the definition.
I think it's above.
You know, you can go to definition.
Timer. Oh, I see. So maybe we can go to definition. There we are.
Yeah. So now create.
Yeah.
So the same thing. Create request, right?
Okay. Create. Request to create timer.
Yeah, and now line 49 no longer.
Now it doesn't have an ID, right?
Right.
Oh.
So you don't even have to make that decision. Right. So what you can do now is like entity.id equals new GUID.
Which is what.
Yeah.
And we were trying to talk about like how we should actually do it.
No, not DTO. It's just create a GUID.
Oh,
yeah. So GUID. No, it's there's no new. It's weird. It's GUID dot. Or GUID dot.
Show me.
New GUID. GUID dot new GUID.
GUID dot new GUID.
GUID dot new GUID.
And no, that's all one word. New GUID.
Yes, the name of a method.
So the N is uppercase in new GUID. Yeah. It's a static method on the GUID class itself because of whatever reason. Capital I.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. There you go. So now people can't override your GUID ID or
Right.
and cause errors or something like that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how, because right now what's going on is I have a bunch of IDs that I've created that are really simple, just for managing like which timer it is, right?
Yeah.
Just the way that if it was a to-do app, you might have an ID for each to-do.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like maybe I should just have my own, right? And it doesn't not, I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, George is basically saying all the things I had in the back of my head, like we're gonna do all this stuff later. So yeah, this is, yeah. At some point
I'm not creeping. We're doing it now. So that second parameter no longer makes sense.
Oh yeah, because it's.
Because it's a creating, so you're not going to have it.
Yeah. So it's like.
So line 47, remove that second parameter.
Okay.
Right, because you're creating it. If you want to update it, that's going to be a different freaking method. So now line 48. Entity is just going to be new timer. There's no saved entity boolean, right? Line 48. So line 48 is just equals new timer. Cool. Now, that's the new timer. And now we can actually make this a little simpler and use object constructor syntax.
I was wondering about that. I was like, isn't there a...
Yeah, there is. So before the semicolon, but after new timer, put an open-close curlies.
An open-close parentheses before the semicolon?
No, open-close mustache. Before the semicolon, after the new timer.
Okay.
So create the new timer, and here's a block. Inside of there, we just can assign properties. So we do ID equals GUID.newGUID. Capital ID. Yep, and then a comma, not a semicolon. And it's so in this case it's a comma, not a semicolon. Now we want to assign order. We could do order equals DTO dot order, yeah, go ahead and do that. Yep. Comma, or even simpler, you could just do DTO dot paused. Right?
DTO dot what?
Order DTO dot time. You don't actually need it. Like if the left hand side and the right hand side are the same name, you can just write it DTO. I think. Try that.
Really?
I think. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Before I go too far, try writing DTO dot paused right there and put in a comma. Or yeah, DTO dot order, but just without the left hand side at all.
Oh yeah, gotcha. So just
DTO dot order. Capital O. Is it explaining?
no. Yeah, it's
What
giving
was it saying? Can you not do that?
initialize member, invalid initializer member. Maybe I didn't put it
Maybe you
in.
can't do that. Eh.
No.
No,
yeah,
there's
there's one in base timer order.
no. I think that that really should work. So I'm actually a little surprised about that.
Invalid initializer member declare.
Yeah, well, in any case,
Maybe
order
it's
equals
more-
order. You could still do that stuff.
No.
It's just more verbose. There is a thing. I don't know if it's a .NET Core issue or if I don't think I'm misremembering the syntax.
I would
But yeah, right. So order equals.
normally it would. Okay.
No, yeah. Well, that's not going to work because you're right.
And you can
So
just
you fill everything out like that. You could do that, and that's
right.
it's,
And
it's,
so
it's
that way you don't need to use this whole entity.
yeah.
So you basically save yourself a single prefix.
It does, and it kind of holds together a little more because there's only certain types of things you can put in there, so you can see it as an initializer. Now, what you really, really would want to do would be to put all of that, whatever is absolutely mandatory to create a timer.
Uh-huh.
Like, for example, does it make sense to have a timer without an order, or does it matter to have a timer without a start time? Like those, it seems like it doesn't make sense to even have a timer object without those things. I would put those in the constructor, so you can't even create an instance of a timer without those things.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
now, if you do that, don't let's not go off there yet, because if you do that, there's certain tricks you have to do in order to make Entity Framework be able to create an instance of it.
Uh-huh.
But as far as actual good design, you should not be able to create an instance of a class that's invalid.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So why do you have to put it all in the constructor? Why can't you just have it consume an object that has a bunch of that fits the criteria? It seems like a lot
You
of
could do something like timer.create from request and pass in the DTO. You could have like a static factory method. Or you could have a timer factory, right? That you pass in that DTO and its job is...
Oh, gotcha. So we're like actually, we're preserving that behavior. Gotcha. So this is all just to make C#, like all the Visual Studio stuff work nicely. And
Well, kind of. I mean, like, as far as the rule of, hey, don't make it possible to make objects that are invalid in an invalid state is just a generally good design.
yeah, right. But isn't that the whole thing about typing or having an interface? I don't know.
Yes, but that's the thing, and that's exactly what constructors are for.
Okay.
to be able to say, hey, you can't. It makes no sense to have a timer without a start date. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to do that and then to make it work with the routing, correct?
Would
that require some extra tweaking? I think.
You don't have to do anything extra with the routing.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
then how does it know exact? Well, anyway, I guess that's through the DTO.
Yeah, I mean, all you did was just change the name of the thing. The other thing actually that I would say, because now like your two DTO function, is it even used in two different locations? Like on line 33, your two DTO function. Where
Yeah.
exactly is it used?
Um,
Like click on where it says two references above line 33. Like if you actually click on two references. Yeah.
I'll find all reference.
Yeah. So basically, it is used there when you're actually using it. Wait, okay. Oh, it's called used in both get timer and when you're getting a list of timers. I would argue that those probably should be different things. Because when you're getting a one timer, maybe you want all the freaking data on the timer, but when you're getting a list of timers, you want like a truncated set of data, so you're not returning everything. Again, it's not a big deal for something like this, but that's like along the lines it's good to be thinking.
Right, so you might want to break this.
So you might want to break it down even further, so not just an output timer, but really like a view model per route. Have it be a DTO for every single route. And like that, I really go to that level mostly, where and I'll use inheritance to save on typing like we did in the timer DTO.cs class, but it's just it really is just a pain in the ass to otherwise, and as you'll go out there, you will see like every single company in the world doesn't follow this advice, and it sucks for all of them. Like everyone runs into like security issues, mass assignment vulnerabilities, weird little hacks that they have to hack around just because they were too lazy on typing and just use the same DTO all over the place.
Okay.
As opposed to like the entire point of data transfer objects is you create one specifically for this one purpose. So that's the thing.
You end up returning more data than you actually need, which can...
That's another one. Yeah, exactly. Your DTO object defines what data you're returning. Yeah, you want to think about that explicitly, not just throw, oh, I have this already typed up, and throw it at that. There's actually a really nice feature for that called anonymous objects in C#. That where, for example,
It's where we were using those like those success equals true things for some of our like saving creating stuff.
So for output DTOs, I love using anonymous objects, obviously, because it's single use and it makes it very explicit that this is single use.
Oh yeah, I actually liked that. So this whole thing, that was cool. I was like, that's very JavaScripty.
Yeah. So actually, like you could use it, for example. So go to one of the places where you use it, where you're calling to DTO, like where you list out timers, right? So when you have like a select method, right? Okay. So that in that select method, what you could do is put a lambda in there. This is actually that exact. Oh, okay. So that exact thing that you're doing there actually forces the database to do a lot of extra work. So instead of calling select to DTO, you could make it a lambda. So do T arrow. It takes a parameter called T, so the timer itself.
Okay.
Right. And then instead of to DTO, you create an anonymous object. So do new mustaches.
And then
in there, just like so like do something like ID equals T.ID, order equals T.order, and just the properties you want to return.
Oh.
Yeah.
So first is what we were doing before.
Yeah. Uppercase, the ID, and so. And that way you don't need to use 2DTO there. And also, there's a different advantage to it here. Well, also exactly what you're returning is here, like is right here in the class. Like you can look at it and see the exact structure. The other thing that is nice about it, when you do fill that out, is you can see that to list on line 28. You can get rid of that. So what you had before was you were saying, go ahead and not down there, though actually that's fine too. On the other two lists in line 28. So what was happening was when you had when you do that, basically you were saying grab. You wanted to get all the timers, and you wanted to pass each one of them through the 2DTO method.
Uh-huh.
But if you're not taking all the properties, if you're not going to use all the properties on the timer, then you're loading extraneous data. Like what you really want is just to load only the data that you need to use in the database.
Gotcha.
However, you couldn't do that because you needed the full timer object in order to pass it to the 2DTO method. If you do it this way, you actually don't need to. So you can get rid of that to list.
Yes.
And what that will do is that select method will actually be converted into a select statement, which will only get those properties that you need.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. That's funny because usually when I think of like reducing code, it's like we're actually adding a bunch more code just because we're trying to be very explicit.
Yes,
I think
but I guarantee yes, and we are adding some code, but I guarantee you it ultimately ends up saving code. Because what people do when they reuse V models, they end up packing around 9 ways to Sunday. I think you look at it and you're like, damn, this is all this shit is just because you were too lazy to type some extra stuff at the very beginning.
That is very true.
Yeah. All right, I gotta run. It's time to get back to work.
Okay, thanks guys.
It was fun.
Yeah, that was
thanks.
good.
Talk to you
Watching
later.
some C# in action. Haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, and thanks for all the good advice.
Come back to the phone.
George is always full of opinions and advice. Not all of it good.
Keep us straight and honest.
That is for sure. That is for sure.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys, later.